We are definitely not ready to be without him. But in his all too brief time in the MCU, Chadwick Boseman has left a high watermark that will live on in the hearts of fans of the Black Panther, old and new. The wait was long for the Black Panther to join the MCU, but when he finally appeared, played by 42 and Marshall star Chadwick Boseman, he exceeded expectations and created a memorable superhero in a world of exceptional superheroes. Boseman's impact as the Black Panther, both on and off screen, meant so much to so many. Let's take a look at some of his greatest MCU moments.
Wakanda forever! Wakanda forever!
Maybe the most heroic feat that Boseman pulled off while playing the Black Panther was quietly fighting cancer while doing it. Never mind the long hours and difficult accommodations of filming a mega-budget movie, superhero movies of today demand superhero physiques as well. Boseman did all of the superhero things while also battling a cancer diagnosis. Only a small circle of people he trusted knew about the diagnosis and kept his secret in the hopes that he would beat it. Even Kevin Feige didn't find out until Boseman's final moments. That those in the know were able to keep his secret is a testament to the kinds of bonds that Boseman would make with those who knew him. In the meantime, however, he kept his head held high as the King of Wakanda, as well as a police detective in the Russo's non-Marvel follow-up 21 Bridges, and a Vietnam soldier in Spike Lee's Da 5 Bloods. Rather than cancer putting Boseman on the sideline, he stood stronger than ever, doing what superheroes do, inspiring people to stand tall and overcome. While he fought cancer privately, he didn't leave those who were waging their own fights against cancer without his support. Actors who play superhero all make a point of visiting children in hospitals as part of their responsibility in portraying these larger-than-life characters. It was clear, however, that Boseman took this duty personally, and that it clearly meant something to him to do it. During an interview with Sirius Satellite Radio, Boseman broke down, talking about an interaction with a pair of kids at the hospital he visited. It was clearly an emotional moment for the star. And now that we know what he was going through at the time, we can understand why it would be that much more personal for him. It was just another sign of how seriously Boseman took the role of Black Panther and what it meant to so many people.
Yeah, it means a lot.
Okay, so let's get into some of the performances that made Boseman's Black Panther stand out so much. Superheroes, as a rule, have complex relationships with their parents. Generally speaking, the parent has to die in order to push their children into that superhero life. Most of the time, it's a loving relationship cut short by an injustice that drives the hero into their role. Like Thor, however, T'Challa was born into his role as protector of Wakanda. Thanks to a tie-in comic, we know that T'Challa had already been acting as the Black Panther before T'Chaka's death in the explosion blamed on Bucky Barnes. Unlike the other heroes who have lost their parents, T'Challa gets to revisit his on the ancestral plane. However, the second time he does that, he knows the lengths his father has gone in order to protect Wakanda. The weight of his father's decision weighs heavily on T'Challa, and you can see it through Boseman's acting. The power of seeing a superhero expressing that much sorrow, not just at a personal loss, but at an injustice done by someone he loves and respects, cannot be overstated. M'Baku is one of the biggest figures in Black Panther's rogue gallery. The leader of the Jabari tribe has made some questionable partnerships and underhanded schemes to take the throne from T'Challa in the comics as the White Ape. In the MCU, M'Baku's character was more than just an antagonist to T'Challa. Not just power-hungry for the throne of Wakanda, M'Baku, like Killmonger, offers a different version of the reclusive kingdom. M'Baku's challenge speech outlines his disappointment with T'Challa's family's rule, and feels challenge for the crown is the best way to address those concerns. As spectacular as that waterfall fight is, it manages to be only the second best fight in a waterfall in Black Panther, but what really stands out is the end. The challenge only ends when one person yields or dies. At the end, it is clear that M'Baku would rather die than yield. Rather than removing a rival, T'Challa convinces M'Baku to yield and continue to lead his people with his head held high, having represented the tribe well in the challenge. It was the first step T'Challa took, turning an enemy into an ally. T'Challa was able to make his enemy into his ally thanks to the superpower he didn't get from the heart-shaped herb, or Bast, but rather from his parents, friends, and confidants. That superpower is empathy. It's empathy that makes him cry when he finds out what his father did in Oakland. It's empathy that allows T'Challa to see that revenge and anger have consumed both Zemo and the Avengers as they fight each other in the wake of Zemo's scheme. Throughout Civil War, T'Challa has been laser-focused on one thing: avenging his father. While other superheroes spend their entire career avenging fallen parents, T'Challa decides in that final moment with Zemo that he's done letting vengeance consume him, preventing Zemo from killing himself, saying that the living are not done with him yet. The pathos and dignity that Boseman brought to the role of T'Challa isn't just quiet moments of introspection and emotion. It means that his character also commanded a presence that reached beyond his superpowers and his status of King of Wakanda. Perhaps the best moment that was on display was during Avengers Infinity War. Deep down, we all knew that Infinity War was going to end badly. There was another Avengers movie coming out just 1 year later, and we all knew how bad things were going to get when Thanos gets his collection of stones together. Regardless, when the Avengers turn to the King of Wakanda to make a final stand against Thanos, Boseman's T'Challa does what he does best: inspire. When the Black Order comes to Earth to get the Mind Stone, T'Challa commanded his defenses and made sure someone got Captain America a shield.
Get this man a shield.
Introducing a superhero isn't always an exciting event. Whether we got to see a hero grow into their abilities or create the superpowers like Tony Stark building his various suits, or Scott Lang discovering the tiny world of the Ant-Man suit, or if they emerge having lived with their powers like Thor fighting the Frost Giants. Our first introduction to the Black Panther was in Civil War, when he joined the chase for Bucky Barnes with Captain America and the Falcon. It was a dynamic chase, not just because both Team Captain America and Black Panther wanted to catch Bucky, who didn't want to be caught at all, but because neither of them wanted the other to catch Bucky. Add to that, it was a car chase with two heroes who could outrun the cars on foot, and it was all the more exciting. Boseman's unique fighting stance helped the hero stand out even when he was in full costume. There's an unwritten rule that says when superheroes meet, they fight. Generally speaking, the outcome is a deep respect for each other. Captain America got his second round with the Black Panther at the airport, where Cap hoped that they could grab a quick Quinjet to prove Bucky's innocence. Team Iron Man, however, had other plans. Captain America and the Black Panther have a lot in common. They're both artificially enhanced in order to protect their country, and they both utilize vibranium. During that airport fight, T'Challa had a chance to remind Captain America where vibranium comes from by doing something Norse gods and murderous androids couldn't do: scar Cap's shield. While T'Challa was a silent member of the foot and car chase for Bucky Barnes in Civil War, it wasn't the last time we got to see the King of Wakanda in a dynamic car chase. In South Korea, T'Challa, with the help of Okoye and Nakia on location and Shuri in the car, T'Challa found himself facing Wakandan public enemy number 1, Ulysses Klaue. This time, we not only see some of the advanced technology that Wakanda is able to utilize, but also how T'Challa interacts with his own team. From managing the giddy excitement of his sister Shuri as she remote drives a Lexus through town, to the reliable professionalism of Okoye and Nakia, Boseman's Black Panther leads through trust and encouragement. This also means that when they told their leader the world was watching, he realized he needed to pull back. Agent Ross was on hand to take Klaue into custody outside the camera phone coverage of the public street. Ross knew Black Panther's secret. He was also the King of Wakanda, but what he didn't know was how the king of an underdeveloped agrarian African country had the resources to create a bulletproof catsuit. Even though Ross is a man without superpowers, he finds himself dealing with a world of superheroes. He still takes his job seriously, including when he steps in front of a bullet to protect Nakia. Rather than letting this agent die trying to protect a Wakandan, T'Challa makes the call to bring him to Wakanda where their technology can heal Ross. It's a big move. Ross is a CIA agent whose job it is to gather intelligence on other countries. It also comes before he knows Killmonger's history and what his father did to protect Wakanda's secret, showing an early difference between T'Challa and T'Chaka, that the cost of keeping the secret will not sit well on his shoulders. Now, of course, a lot of this has been the big swinging action scenes that we've come to expect from an MCU movie. We'll get to why that's still Boseman under all those effects, but there's another moment of powerhouse acting that might get lost in the excitement. It comes when M'Kathu brings Killmonger to the throne room for the council to interrogate after Killmonger delivered Klaue, something T'Chaka and T'Challa both failed to do. T'Challa has just learned who Eric really is. N'Jadaka, T'Challa's cousin orphaned by his father. In this scene, Boseman portrays T'Challa's anger at Killmonger's action, sorrow for what has happened to him, and his own conflicting feelings about protecting the secret of Wakanda against both the arguments of N'Jadaka and Nakia. This reaches a head when he refuses to ask Killmonger his name, a moment of power revealed in the fight with M'Baku when his mother tells the world to be king, to tell him who you are. Endgame was an all-star blowout 11 years in the making, or 50-plus years dating back to the official emergence of Marvel Comics. With a well-populated world of superheroes and some of our original heroes bowing out, everyone still managed to get their moment. For the Black Panther, that moment was his leg in the relay race for the Infinity Gauntlet. In the hopes of getting it to Lewis's old van that happened to have a time machine in the back, T'Challa steps in to take the ultimate power glove from an exhausted Clint Barton. The last time the two met, they were on opposite sides of the airport fight. These two heroes don't hold grudges, though. Clint recognizes the Black Panther and is more than happy to hand off the gauntlet for a run. The Black Panther's agility and Shuri's energy-absorbing technology make for an amazing run. While Wakanda is a fictional African country, the elements that made up what eventually became Wakanda on the big screen were definitely not fictional. Boseman took the task of bringing the fictional African country to a life in a way that honored the real cultures that made up the second largest continent. One of those came when acting with his co-star father on the set of Civil War, John Caney, who portrayed T'Chaka as a South African actor, author, and playwright who himself brought a quiet dignity and empathy to the role of the Wakandan king. During a scene, Caney responded to Boseman in his native Isikosha language. Boseman took the time on set to learn to respond in that language, setting Isikosha as the language of Wakanda. Ryan Coogler, who would direct The Black Panther, described seeing a father talking to his son in an African language in a blockbuster movie as emotionally moving. Ryan Coogler was not a casual pick to direct the Black Panther movie. His directorial debut, Fruitvale Station, depicted a fateful New Year's Eve in Oakland that ended in a tragedy all too familiar. Since then, he also took up nothing less than the Rocky franchise, directing Creed, which follows Apollo Creed's son entering the world of boxing after the death of his father in the events of Rocky IV. Those movies made Coogler the obvious choice to head the first MCU movie with a black superhero in the lead role. One of the things that made Black Panther such a success is that it wasn't an evil plot, but a disagreement over Wakanda's responsibility to the world. T'Challa was uneasy with his duty to protect Wakanda's secret at all costs, and while he defeated Killmonger, he ultimately agreed that Wakanda owed a debt. He begins to repay that in Coogler's hometown of Oakland, buying a building that his uncle was killed in, and the ones around it for Wakandan outreach, letting his sister introduce the kids of Oakland to Wakandan tech. Of course, buying a few buildings and impressing some playground kids with an advanced ship is one thing, but you have to announce your intentions to the world. Perhaps the one moment that can be said to really start the MCU in motion came at the end of Iron Man, when Tony Stark was meant to give a press conference denying that he was Iron Man. In that world, Tony Stark headed the most advanced entity in the MCU, Stark Enterprises. When T'Challa addresses the UN, telling them that Wakanda plans to help the world seems skeptical. After all, Wakanda has been pretending to be a minor agrarian society. It's Boseman's knowing grin that really seals the scene. Speaking of Shuri, the MCU has managed to form some amazing on-screen relationships. Whether it's the mutual respect of Captain America and his friend Sam Wilson, or the mentor relationship between Tony Stark and young Peter Parker, the MCU has proven it's more than just splashy effects. T'Challa has a group of women around him that give him strength and keep him grounded. None perform that last task as well as his super genius sister Shuri. The relationship is both playful and respectful at the same time, as Shuri delights in taking shots at her regal older brother. While Boseman's T'Challa is warm with all of the people he knows well, it's when he interacts with his sister that they create a believable and charming sibling relationship. What sibling hasn't tried to capture the other in an embarrassing kick fail? By the time Agent Ross made his way to Wakanda for the quick fix of his spine, there was already another outsider who was benefiting from Wakanda technology, Bucky Barnes. Barnes was at the center of Civil War, framed by Zemo to help bring down the Avengers from within. After spending most of the movie trying to kill Barnes, T'Challa agrees to hide Bucky while he gets his head right. While at the end of Civil War he goes back into cryogenic freezing, we quickly learn that you can't leave something broken with Shuri for very long. But it's really about the moment that Steve tells the king that people will come for Bucky if they know he's here. T'Challa's response is cool and confident. Let them try. Black Panther opens immediately after the events of Civil War, with the country ready to mourn the death of its king and crown its successor. For that ceremony, T'Challa wants his old friend and former girlfriend Nakia to join them. The only problem? She's a war dog on a mission outside of Wakanda. Of course, it's an excellent opportunity to reintroduce our titular hero and his abilities. But again, it's in the small moments that Boseman makes the character large. In the moments before he leaves the ship, Okoye tells him not to freeze, which he responds with a cocky smile, "I never freeze." Naturally, when he sees Nakia, he freezes. Some people you just never get over. Boseman was able to pull a relatable moment out of a larger-than-life action sequence. As it turns out, the fight with M'Baku was only a warm-up for the waterfall. When N'Jadaka claims his right to challenge for the throne of Wakanda, it sets up a second showdown with less fanfare and darker consequences. Just like in his fight with M'Baku, N'Jadaka asks, "Is this your king?" Only the answer doesn't go as well this time around. Where the fight against M'Baku was one of finesse versus brute strength, the fight against N'Jadaka instead was one of desperation and brutality. N'Jadaka has trained his entire life for this moment. Not only is Boseman's execution of the fight scenes engaging, it's his realization that he's being beaten that gives the scene its weight. One of the things that becomes standard with action heroes is the degree to which they do their own stunts. Stunts by the very nature are a tricky thing. If something goes wrong, the central actor in the movie goes down, and it can throw production into chaos. For truly dangerous stunts that require years of specific training, even the best use stunt doubles. But to give the movie a real feeling of peril, directors and actors alike will try to do as many as their own stunts as possible. For Boseman, this meant some incredibly athletic moments, made all the more remarkable knowing what he was struggling with while doing it. Those are some of the moments that Chadwick Boseman brought magic to the MCU with his presence and his talent. What are your favorite moments with Boseman in the MCU as Black Panther? Let us know in the comments, and while you're there, make sure to subscribe to CBR for the latest videos in your inbox. Rest in power, Chadwick Boseman.